The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
So we're proud of what we're doing, able to lay it out very directly to these senators and soon to the House, but it's all classified. We can't talk about it now.
Secretaries of War and State on Capitol Hill briefing Congress about ongoing operations against suspected drug runners. What members of Senate believe is the motivation behind these kinetic strikes.
The safety of these students were at risk, and how everybody's safety is at risk, and I think that's the truth.
A college community concerned as a murderer remains on the loose and unidentified. What investigators have to go on as the search for the Brown shooter continues. And then an economic windfall. Just how much money has President Trump's global tariffs brought into the country? Good evening. I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, along with Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Capitol Hill today, briefing lawmakers of both chambers on the ongoing strikes against suspected narco-terrorists coming from South America. Today's briefing comes as the Pentagon confirmed 3 more strikes yesterday, targeting designated terrorist organizations, killing at least 8 people. But the focus remains on the double tap strike back in September that killed 2 survivors of an initial attack on a boat. Democrats say the full video of what happened should be made public, while Secretary of War says the videos will remain classified for review on Capitol Hill.
I also believe that every American should see an appropriate version of this, of the unedited, they should see an appropriate version of what happened on September the 2nd. I saw it. It was deeply troubling.
In keeping with long-standing Department of War policy, Department of Defense policy, of course, we're not going to release a top-secret, full, unedited video of that to the general public. Hask and Sask and appropriate committees will see it, but not the general public.
Members of both parties also believe these military actions are part of a pressure campaign to remove President Maduro from power in Venezuela. President Trump himself said, quote, his days are numbered. Senator Lindsey Graham, who supports regime change, questioned the outcome, while Senator Chris Coons wants to know what's next.
Yeah, 15% of the Navy pointed at this guy. If he's still standing when this is over, this is a fatal major mistake to our standing in the world.
This seems to me clearly about regime change. So what's their plan for dealing with the chaos that inevitably ensues when a dictator is overthrown?
Meanwhile, the effort to disrupt drug flow into the country continues. Yesterday, the Coast Guard offloaded nearly 14 tons of cocaine with an estimated street value of more than $200 million in San Diego. These drugs were confiscated off the coast of Mexico, Central America, and South America. Well, the search for the man suspected of shooting and killing 2 students and wounding 9 others at Brown University in Rhode Island on Saturday continues. Today, the FBI shared a 6-minute timeline leading up to the shooting, including enhanced surveillance and security videos, but they don't show the gunman's face. He's actually wearing a black face mask. They are asking the public's help to identify the shooter. And classes and exams at Brown University remain canceled as memorials have been growing on campus. Concern of the suspect still at large also growing. The National News Desk, Molly Levine, reports from Providence, Rhode Island.
The air is heavy here at Brown. The campus is quiet, but the support is certainly loud. You could see a growing memorial around the Barris and Holly building as caution tape drapes around the perimeter. Placing flowers, sharing hugs, and shedding tears. It's all happening outside of the Barris and Holly building at Brown University.
This is my first time back on campus since this happened.
As memorials grow across campus, so does the concern that the suspect who walked into the engineering building, shooting and killing 2 people and injuring 9 others on Saturday, remains at large. These are the newest images released from the FBI and Providence authorities. They're looking for the man dressed in black with a jacket that has an olive green bottom half to it. Authorities describe the man as 5'8" with a stocky build. They're hoping someone may recognize his clothing, how he walks, or how he puts his hands behind his back in this video. There's been an increased police presence across the city, and authorities were seen searching the area again this morning, looking for anything left behind and knocking on doors in surrounding neighborhoods.
I think this is what they should do. Anything that they can do to apprehend this guy is, you know, I think odds are on the table.
But 2 full days later and nobody in custody.
The safety of these students were at risk, and how everybody's safety is at risk, and I think that's the truth. Like, this guy is out there somewhere. He's walking around. He could be standing next to you in the grocery store. We don't know.
Now, police are asking anyone who was in this building either Friday or Saturday to give them a call, contact them to set up an interview, as no tip is too small. I'm reporting in Providence. I'm Molly Levine.
The suspects in the anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Australia were inspired by ISIS, according to Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Authorities said the suspects, a father and son, had also recently traveled to a part of the Philippines known as a hub for terrorist groups. 15 people were killed, in that shooting at a Hanukkah event on Bondi Beach, including a Holocaust survivor. And now deepening fear of terrorism and radical Islamic extremism is forcing officials to cancel New Year's Eve events around the world. In Paris, the famous New Year's Eve concert has been called off, and a televised countdown will now replace it. An official with the Manhattan Institute stated, quote, "It's obvious that this is the result of massive unvetted Muslim immigration into Europe. Western Europe has had a terrorism problem for many years now, and that has been exacerbated because of unvetted Islamic immigration as a result of the refugee crisis of over a decade ago," end quote. Now, meanwhile, the FBI remains on high alert after disrupting an alleged terror plot set to take place on New Year's Eve here in the U.S. It comes at the end of a year that started with a deadly New Year's Day attack, followed by many more both here in the U.S. and around the world. The National News Desk, Christine Frizzell, brings us the details from Washington.
In a year that began with a man driving his truck into a crowd of people in New Orleans on New Year's Day, killing 14, a stunning announcement from the FBI. 4 suspects arrested while reportedly conducting practice drills ahead of planned attacks in Los Angeles on New Year's Eve.
These bombs were to blow up at the same time on midnight this New Year's Eve. The 4 subjects are members of a radical faction of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF.
The Turtle Island Liberation Front, according to the FBI, is a violent homegrown anti-government group with additional plans to attack New Orleans and immigration and customs enforcement agents. These photos of their materials shared by the FBI.
They had bomb-making wherewithal. They were test-firing bombs in the desert. And if they pulled this off, 5 bombs going off in crowded stores and locations in L.A. Under the cover of the noise of New Year's Eve fireworks, this could have been devastating.
Another alleged plot, foiled by the FBI, set to be carried out on Halloween weekend near Detroit, as several other instances of terrorism centered around holidays have unfortunately been successful. This attack on Yom Kippur in Manchester, UK, and of course, the weekend attack at Australia's Bondi Beach.
You simply cannot harden every school, every synagogue, every Christmas party, every holiday market.
The father and son suspects allegedly had a handmade ISIS flag found in their car. The ideology no longer concentrated in the Middle East and Africa, with 279 ISIS sympathizers charged in the United States since 2014. Experts say one common thread spans multiple ideologies.
They want to send that message. They want to be able to say that they are striking fear into the heart of the government, that they are changing government policy, and regardless of the ideology behind it, that is terrorism.
And when it comes to bringing people on board or recruiting for this terrorism, experts say nothing has played as major of a role as the internet and social media. Taylor.
And Christine, why this trend of attacking on holidays?
Well, first and foremost, our experts said this, but I think it bears repeating. Large gatherings mark easier targets. They're certainly harder to harden. But the meaning behind the holidays of celebration and joy, this is something many terror groups, regardless of ideology, seem keen on disrupting. Experts say it's not just holidays, but anniversaries of previous terror attacks that seem to really be a focus for would-be attackers.
In Washington, D.C., Christine Frizzell, an important report there. Thank you. All right, well, prosecutors just announced charges they'll be filing against Nick Reiner, accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and his wife, photographer-producer Michelle Reiner.
These charges will be 2 counts of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of multiple murders. He also faces a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, that being a knife. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
Nick Reiner, 32, is suspected in the death of the famous Hollywood couple. Police said he was arrested after his parents were found dead in their Los Angeles home Sunday. Nick is being held without bail. New documents handed over to Congress today suggest that the FBI told the Department of Justice in 2022 they did not have probable cause to search Mar-a-Lago and suggested other methods of recovering documents believed to be at the estate. Senate Judiciary Chairman Grassley released several emails back and forth between the FBI Washington field office and the DOJ and called the raid a miscarriage of justice. Among the documents released is a transitory record saying the field office did not establish probable cause for the search warrant and that, quote, continued investigation and additional interviews have not found any witness who has reported seeing classified records at Mar-a-Lago. Then Attorney General Merrick Garland said days after the raid, he personally approved the warrant, citing probable cause as his reasoning. Well, several boxes of documents were seized from the property. Then Trump and some of his estate employees were charged with mishandling those classified documents, but those charges were later dropped in 2024 when Judge Eileen Cannon ruled then special counsel Jack Smith was improperly appointed to his position. It is unclear what Senator Grassley will do with this new information made public today. Well, a judge says he is leaning towards rejecting an attempt to halt construction of the White House ballroom. The judge heard arguments today in a lawsuit filed last week by a historic preservation group claiming the president did not seek appropriate approval to build the ballroom. The Trump administration challenged the suit, arguing any disruption to the project could restrict Secret Service operations. A ruling is expected within a few days. President Trump says he has full confidence in his chief of staff after interviews with Susie Wiles were published in Vanity Fair. Speaking with the New York Post, Trump said he did not read the article but noted he believes Wiles has done a fantastic job in her role. Trump also downplayed her comment that he has an alcoholic's personality. He explained he said that many times about himself. Trump tells the Post he's fortunate he does not drink alcohol, saying he has, quote, a possessive and addictive type of personality. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt blamed a biased press and planted story.
This is, unfortunately, another example of disingenuous reporting, where you have a reporter who took the chief of staff's words wildly out of context, did not include the context those conversations were had within. And then further, I think the most egregious part of this article was the bias of omission that was clearly present.
Earlier this month, the White House unveiled a webpage dedicated to countering misreporting and media bias by news outlets. Well, coming up, as the president's tariffs are challenged in the Supreme Court, the Trump administration is revealing how much money they've brought in this year. Then contaminated baby formula likely stayed on store shelves even after a nationwide recall. How many states the FDA fears aren't following instructions. And how police are stepping up security near Jewish places of worship in light of an increase in anti-Semitic violence. We'll be right back. President Donald Trump says he will deliver a primetime address to the nation from the White House tomorrow night at 9 p.m. The president making the announcement in a brief post on his social media website, Truth Social, today, writing that it has been a great year for our country and the best is yet to come. The administration's press secretary delved deeper into what the speech will be about in comments to the press outside the White House earlier.
It's going to be a really good speech. I was just in the Oval Office with the president discussing it. He's going to talk a lot about the accomplishments over the past 11 months, all that he's done to bring our country back to greatness, and all he continues to plan to do to continue delivering for the American people over the next 3 years.
The speech will come as the president works to highlight his record to voters heading into what's expected to be a tough midterm election year. Vice President J.D. Vance highlighted the Trump administration's economic agenda at an event in Allentown, Pennsylvania today.
We are sick of rewarding companies that ship jobs overseas. We're going to reward companies that build right here in America and give Americans good wages to do it.
After his speech, the vice president visited a homeless shelter where he helped to pass out food. Vance argued the Trump administration has made progress, but asked for Americans to have patience as the work continues. Democrats have argued the Trump administration's policies have hurt affordability. Well, new government numbers show the unemployment rate ticked up to 4.6% in November. We're also learning more about wage growth in the face of elevated inflation. The National News Desk, Atra Elnashar reports.
America's once red-hot labor market is cooling down. A batch of new government data, some of which was delayed by the shutdown, shows over October and November, the economy lost 41,000 jobs. Some of this slowdown was expected after a long period of job growth.
But in addition to that, there's been some additional harm to the economy. Of course, uncertainty is not good for the economy. Investors are very squeamish when things are uncertain, less likely to make hires.
The slowing job market risks exacerbating a problem Americans are already struggling with. Inflation.
When the labor market slows down, there's downward pressure on wages. And then the same thing, happening on the opposite side for people is that costs are going up. And so that reduces real wage growth even more.
From November of last year to now, average weekly earnings have only increased $43. Despite all of this, the average consumer isn't necessarily pulling back their spending. Black Friday shopping week saw the highest turnout since 2017, according to the National Retail Federation. But consumer sentiment remains low, creating a real problem for the White House. The administration now hedging on how fast Americans will see relief from high prices, going from saying this on the campaign trail.
Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
To this.
If you had $3,000 taken out of your pocket by the Biden administration, of course you're still struggling to get by. Rome was not built in a day.
The economy expected to be a top focus of the president's primetime address Wednesday night. An economy that, despite serious headwinds, the White House gives high marks.
A plus.
A plus.
Yeah, A plus, 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 plus.
What grade would you give the economy today?
A plus, plus, plus.
In Washington, I'm Atra Elnashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Speaking of the economy, the U.S. has collected more than $200 billion in tariffs this year. That's according to Customs and Border Protection. Since taking office, the president has imposed reciprocal tariffs on imports from most countries, along with what he calls fentanyl tariffs on products from Canada, China, and Mexico. Now, meanwhile, the Supreme Court is considering arguments that the tariffs are illegal. House Speaker Mike Johnson has pulled a planned bipartisan vote on addressing the Affordable Health Care Act expiring subsidies. The speaker says there was not a consensus that could pass the House on a new option. This decision is now creating backlash from within his own party.
It's absurd that we are in a body with 435 members. Everybody has a responsibility to serve their district, to serve their constituents. So maybe, just maybe, everybody should look at this and say, how do we actually fix the healthcare system?
The House is set to consider this week a GOP-backed plan that would create savings accounts and association health plans for small businesses and self-employed workers, allowing them to join larger blocks of insured people. What is not included is an extension of expiring subsidies, making it all but certain some ACA enrollees could see their premiums rise 140%. 14%. Now, according to the Congressional Budget Office, as many as 2 million people could lose insurance over the rising cost.
Really, the roads change so quick. One day or 1 minute it'll be fine and you can come through, and then all of a sudden it's gone. Like B Street's flooded now.
Millions of people in the Pacific Northwest are under flood alerts again as another round of rain slams the region. The strongest rain and wind expected tonight, with gusts up to 50 miles per hour. Multiple levee breaches have led to urgent evacuation orders in some areas of Washington. This comes as people are still cleaning up after massive flooding in Snohomish last week, and more flooding is still possible there through Friday. Major retail stores in at least 36 states continued to sell contaminated baby formula for days or weeks after it was recalled on November 11th. The FDA says it sent warning letters to Walmart, Target, Kroger, and Albertsons about By Heart baby formula, which has sickened at least 51 babies with botulism. The agency says the retailers also failed to show that they have taken corrective actions. They were given 15 days to respond to the letters. A popular kind of dairy-free ice cream could contain materials, like small rocks. Danone is recalling the So Delicious Salted Caramel Cluster non-dairy frozen dessert pictured here. It's the cashews in the product that are the source of the problem. The company says it has fixed the issue, but some affected pints were already sold. So take a look at your freezer. If you bought it, call the customer service line for So Delicious. All right, coming up, Waymo driverless taxis are coming to another city, Las Vegas. How people there feel about the autonomous technology right after this. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Washington, D.C., where police are increasing patrols around Jewish institutions out of an abundance of caution.
I think there's a feeling of devastation, of horror.
And hitting so many in the Jewish community after an anti-Semitic terror attack in Australia during a Hanukkah celebration killed at least 15 victims. Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington's Gila Franklin Siegel saying it's tragedies like this that are forcing synagogues to increase safety measures, especially this time of year.
It is shameful that Jewish events happen now without us being able to announce the location until right before the event.
You know, truckers haul everything from toilet paper to bombs. So it's very, very important to be able to communicate with people what you're hauling in your truck.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says more than 9,500 truck drivers have been taken off the road this year after failing federal English language requirements during roadside inspections.
There's basic information that law enforcement needs. It's a safety issue.
The requirement isn't new. It's been on the books for decades. What is new is enforcement. That shift comes as trucking safety has been under a microscope, including here in Florida. Still, not all drivers agree with how this crackdown is playing out.
I think it sucks if they lose their job because they're not able to speak English, especially with a job like this where you're running around most of the time.
If you've spotted some strange-looking cars covered in sensors around town, that's Waymo. The company has deployed those vehicles here as they prepare to launch services in southern Nevada.
We take a very methodical approach. The vehicles that you've probably seen in Las Vegas are currently driving around with a human behind the wheel.
Waymo has been developing autonomous technology for nearly 2 decades, and while they face challenges along the way, they say the lessons have made their systems safer. We hit the Strip to ask what people think about more self-driving cars coming into the mix. The responses were mixed.
Mixed thoughts for sure. I think, they could definitely they could have an impact here, especially in Vegas, but the technology itself is a little disturbing sometimes.
I wouldn't want to risk my life, if there was, a reason for it to, glitch up all of a sudden.
I think they're wonderful. I think it's a great idea. I think they're better drivers than most people probably driving on this trip here today.
Pop star Mariah Carey will perform at the 2026 Winter Olympics opening ceremony. The local organizing committee announcing Carey as the first international star set to perform at the Milan Cortina opening ceremony February 6th. It's expected to draw about 60,000 spectators. Of course, millions more watching on television. In 2002, Carey sang the national anthem at the Super Bowl, and according to Billboard, she has 19 #1 hits. Thanks for watching. I'm Taylor Murray.